in Parsha Toldos, it talks about Avram Avinu, the fact that Ekev asher shama Avram b'koili v'yishmar mishmarti mitzvosai v'chukosai v'sorosai. Because the fact that Avram listened to me, he listened to my voice, Hashem is saying, and he kept my mitzvos, my laws, and my Torah. And what does Chazal teach us? Chazal teach us in Gemara and Yuma that say that we see from here that Avram Avinu kept the entire Torah. So, first of all, one question is, we see that by Avram, but we don't see that by Yitzchak, and we don't see that by Yaakov. We don't see that the Torah is testifying to the fact that Avram, that Yitzchak and Yaakov are, kept the Torah. We can assume that they did, but we don't see that the Torah testifying that. Right? Top of that, it goes on to say that that by Avram Avinu, as we see in Pirkei Avos, it says that Avram Avinu had the 10 tests, and he passed all of them with flying colors, right? But it doesn't say anything about Yitzchak and Yaakov having tests. And then another thing, if we really look into the Psukim, we know we see very clearly that it says in Rashi that that the level of Avram Avinu, his kedusha, his holiness was so high that it says that Hine no yadati ki eshes yifas Torah yifas marat. That now I know that you are beautiful. Like what happened all the other years? Why did he not know? So the modesty that he had with he and his wife was in such a way that they were so holy. Like, why didn't we see that by Yitzchak and Yaakov? And there were similar stories with Avram and Yitzchak when it came to hiding their wives or telling them that they're not really their wife. But we don't see that fact that Avram is the one that, like, now I know, because I know that, therefore, his Yitzchak is just, he had to go ahead and he had to say that his wife is his sister, and that's it. But it doesn't go into those details. And the question is why? And we know that all the forefathers were holy and pure. So why is it only mentioned by Avram? And then we see also by the wells. We see there was wells by Avram and Yitzchak, but there's no wells by Yaakov. Like wells for water. Well, water wells, right? There's no why it wasn't there wells in Yaakov. But not only that, we see that by Avram the wells got stopped up, and by Yitzchak the wells didn't get stopped up. Right? See what the Nesivos Shalom says to be able to explain. So first of all, we have to understand what was the reason for it. It's very nice. They dug wells to be able to have water like anybody else would, right? But obviously, whatever Avram Yitzchak is doing was something much deeper than that. No pun intended with the wells. But on top of that, more so, the fact that why would the Torah, delve into it? Because even if it was something that, wasn't so important, the Torah wouldn't say it. So it not only it's Avram Yitzchak doing it, but it's also the fact that the Torah is emphasizing on these wells by Avram and by Yitzchak, right? And more so by Yitzchak. It just mentions when it talks about Yitzchak, it mentions that the wells that Avram made were stopped up, but it didn't say like all the details that it said by Yitzchak. So why is that? So the Zohar Kodesh explains that really what the wells were the wells was that Avram and Yitzchak were being mashpia, they were influencing in the world belief in Hashem, because at that point there was only people doing there was no such thing as atheists. They were all idol worshiping, and therefore he had to show that there is a creator, and so to Yitzchak. Okay, now that answer that is that's the reason behind the wells. And now, why would that be signified by the wells? I would say that maybe because of the fact that the wells is water, and water is Torah. We see that Torah is compared to water. Like a Jew without Torah is like fish without water, and we can't survive without it. So therefore, bringing Torah in the world. The basis of Torah is that there's a Hashem in the world. Okay, and that's why they had to bring that into the world, and that's the signification from the wells being the fact that how they did it. But the question still remains: why was it able to be stopped up by Avram but not by Yitzchak? So he goes on to explain that we know that every midah of the avos, Avram had the midah of chesed, kindness, which is ava, love, and Yitzchak had the midah of gevura, which is din, which is more of yira, of fear of Hashem, and Yaakov had the perfect medium of both of them. He had tiferes, which is glory, which is a perfect mixture of both love and fear. So every one of the forefathers had a perfect, their midah, their own attribute was holy, but the midah of Avram, because it was the midah of chesed, the midah of love and kindness, right? So he was the one who started the olam hatikun, right? What Adam Rishon did, because of that we need a fixing in the world. We need tikkun olam, not what the moderns say tikkun olam is about the environment. The real tikkun olam is to be able to bring the world back to a state before the sin of Adam Rishon. And Avram was the one who started that. He was the one who started the world of tikkun. And so Avram brings in the fact that he spreads the fact that there is a concept of a creator, of God altogether. But he does it through his midah of ava, through his attribute of love and kindness. And Yitzchak brings it in through the attribute of gevura and yira. And Yaakov, whose midah was both, he didn't need to have wells because it was already done from Avram and Yitzchak. But the question is, why was it by Yitzchak? Why was it like forever, everlasting, as opposed to by Avram? And the answer to that really comes to answering our other questions about Avram. That really when a person has works through a midah of gevura, when he works through a midah of fear and might, then he has to do it's a lot of hard work, a lot of effort that he has to put into it. When he's working through love, it's not as hard, but not only it's not as hard, it's also possible to fall, because just like there is a good love, there's also not so good loves, meaning we can fall when a person has that midah of kindness and love, we can also fall for the love and passion for not so good things, for good things that we should stay away from. Okay, but Yitzchak didn't have that problem because he didn't have that, right? And Yaakov also, he had a perfect mixture of both, right? So, and then we see by the Akedah, the end of Parsha Vayeru, we see that it says by Avram, it says, Ki ato yadati ki yorei Hashem yorei elikim ato. Because now I know that you fear Hashem, right? So the Torah testifies that now I know that now Hashem knows that Avram fears Hashem, like what happened before. And the answer is that in order for Avram to be able to pass that test, the only way was to take on the midah of Yitzchak. The midah, the attribute of fear, was the only way to do it, because if just with the attribute of love, he wouldn't have been able to come to killing Yitzchak. It wouldn't happen. He had to have that different midah. And so now we see that we know that when a person really puts a lot of effort into something, then he acquires it and it becomes his. If something that a person just inherits from his father, he's not going to really appreciate it as much. It's not going to really be part of his being and in essence. But when a person really works at something, it's a different story. And that same thing goes with a midah, with an attribute. When it comes to the fact that we know that Yitzchak had the attribute of yira, fear, and judgment. So therefore, when he did something, he had to work very hard to do it, and therefore it stayed forever. But when Avram had the midah of love and kindness, it's not the same. It's all of a sudden he's becoming that. People can take over that love, even though for Avram himself, if he would have stayed alive, it would have stayed. But because Avram passed away, so then therefore the Plishtim come and they're able to close up the wells, and metaphorically means that what he taught was also closed up, and therefore it wasn't around anymore, in the fact that Yitzchak had to go and bring back the concept of that there is a creator. So now we also know that Ava, love, right? We also know that love, okay, is really the highest level of serving Hashem, right? Because we know that when it comes to doing tshuva, right? There's different levels of doing tshuva. The basic two levels are if a person can do tshuva through fear, because of fear of punishment, and then therefore Hashem is going to change and make it, he's going to be forgiven, and he's going to make his averos as if they were, instead of being on purpose, they will be by accident. They did it by accident. But if a person repents through love, then not only will it won't be on purpose, but it will actually be as if he did a mitzvah. Okay, it turns from when a person repents through love, it changes his avera into actual a merit.
Well, what kind of love are you talking about?
That meaning that if a person goes ahead and repents to Hashem, not out of fear of punishment, but out of the fact that he loves Hashem so much and he doesn't want to ruin that relationship that he has with Hashem. He wants to keep it and cherish it, and therefore he's repenting out of love. He doesn't care, punishment, no punishment. That's not his focus.
I understand that from somebody who's already been religious, but most people that first come to faith, they would have the first way. They would do it out of fear.
Okay, 100%. That's the beginning. That's the beginning.
Yeah, that's the beginning.
That's the beginning. Well, what's the highest level? The highest level is out of love.
If you can reach
serving Hashem through love. That's the highest level. So therefore we see, wait a second, Avram's attribute, the way that he dealt with Hashem, is the highest.
Oh.
But even though it was the highest, it wasn't able to be complete, lasting, right? So therefore we need a Yitzchak, and Yitzchak brought in the fear, but that also wouldn't be complete. Yaakov came again, and he was the Isha Emes. He was the real truth, that to be able to make it complete and have a perfect medium between both of them. And and that's why we see that by Yitzchak he didn't need those tests. We said another question was, why is it that Avram had tests and Avram also kept the whole Torah? And it doesn't say that Yitzchak, even though we can assume that for sure they kept the whole Torah, but it doesn't say that because they didn't need that for what their attributes were. Whereas Avram did need that. Avram needed to be able to perform all the mitzvahs, and he had to go through those tests to be able to pass those tests because he had only a limited attribute of Hashem. His dealings with Hashem, the way that he connected with Hashem was only through love, and it wasn't going to stick as well if he didn't have those tests. And therefore, the same thing goes for the fact that Avram had this higher level of modesty with his wife than Yitzchak and Yaakov, right? Even though they were all modest, but he had a higher level. Why? Because of the same reason. Because he was dealing with love when love can have another side to it, which is not good, right? We can have a love for things that are not good for us, right? And therefore, Avram had to keep himself steer himself away from anything but, and therefore his midah, his level of modesty with his wife was a greater level and more, sanctification.
He didn't let his eyes wander or anything like that.
None of the others did that, but he did it even with his wife to an extent.
Oh, like wouldn't even look at her,
meaning, yes,
or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Right. He even did that with his wife, whereas Yitzchak and Yaakov didn't need to. Okay, and so therefore, in order to be able to keep and guard his attribute of love, that the love shouldn't fall into a bad way. So therefore, he had to do the extra things more than Yitzchak and Yaakov, and okay, and therefore the other avos, the other Yitzchak and Yaakov, because they both had the midah of Yira, Yaakov had it exactly a perfect medium. Yitzchak had it completely. So therefore, they didn't need to go through all this. They didn't need to go through the tests. And so, we should be able to have the perfect amount of Yira and the perfect amount of Ava in our dealings with Hashem and the way that we really have a relationship with Hashem to be able to really come close to Him the way that Hashem wants.